Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. We begin today's satsang with a prayer. This will be followed by the chanting of Muktaka trayam. Dakshinamurti Sarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavighnopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarvavangmayam Aharyam Chandrataradi Tam Namah Satvikam Shivam Ekamaksharam Hridi Nirantaram Bhasate Swayam Likhyate Katham Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram Hyahamahamithi Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hridi Vishamanasa Swam Chinvata Majjatava Pavanachalanarodhat Atmanishto Bhavatvam Deham Mrinmaya Vajjadatmakam Aham Buddhirna Tasyastyato Naham Tattadabhavasukti Samaye Siddhatma Sadbhavataha Koham Bhavayutah Kuto Varadhiya Drishtvatmanishtatmana Soham Spurtitaya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam Soham Spurtitaya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam. Namo Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Upadesa Saram by Uma and Ashwini.
Namo Ramana. Idamaham padabhikyamanvaham ahamilinake pyalaya sattaya vigrahendriya prana तदीतमा नाहमेकसत् तज्जडं ह्यसत् सत्त्वभासिका चित्क्ववेतरा सत्तया हि चित् चित्तया ह्यहम् ईशजीवयोर्वेषधीभिदा सत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलम् वेषहानत स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनम् स्वात्मरूपत आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्द्वयादात्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीन चेत् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरम् किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा अपूर्णचित् सुखम् बन्धमुक्त्यतीतं परं सुखम् विन्दति ह जीवस्तु दैविक अहमपेतकं निजविभानकं महदिदं तपो रमणवागियम् नमो रमण
Namo Ramana. We will now have 4 songs presented from Ramananjali Sangeetam. The first one will be presented by Srimati V. Radha. The second song by Dr. Pratibha Sundaresh. The third song will be presented by Savitri Krishnan and Jaisriram Krishnan. The fourth song is by Revathi Shankar.
Namo Ramana to all. Today I will be presenting a song written by Sri Sudhananda Bharati, and the music is by L. Krishnan. And this is one of the famous songs in Ramanacentre. Ramana, 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 Parane Guhane Varane, Paripuranane Varuvai, Parane Guhane Varane, Paripuranane Varuvai, வீரமத்துரிய பெருவின் விரிவே வீரவானிலையே பிரியா உறவே ரமணா 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 கருணாலயனே வருவாய் கதிரார் கடனே வருவாய் கருணாலயனே வருவாய் கதிரார் கடனே வருவாய் உருகம்படியார் குருதி பொருளே தருணம் தருணம் தரணி கருள்வாய் உருகம்படியார் குருதி பொருளே தருணம் தருணம் தரணி கருள்வாய் ரமணா 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 அடியாரிதயாம்புயனே அருணாடகனே அபயம் அடியாரிதயாம்புயனே அருணாடகனே அபயம் துடியானிலையே சுடர் மாமணியே சுகநாயகனே அபயம் அபயம் துடியானிலையே சுடர் மாமணியே சுகநாயகனே அபயம் அபயம் ரமணா 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 ரமணா
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We have been celebrating Ganesh Chaturthi since a week now. In fact, here we have the Ganesha Visarjan tomorrow, and we have been celebrating for the past, more than a week now. In this composition, beautiful composition, Dr. Ambika Kameshwar describes Lord Ganesha as having come as our Sadguru Ramana to protect us and deliver us from this ocean of samsara. She says, Lord Ganesha, remover of obstacles and ever directing us to realize our true nature, shower your boundless grace. Lord Ganesha, you who have come to this earth in human form as Sadguru Ramana, please protect us. To prostrate to you as embodiment of Supreme Being, to praise you as the ocean of grace, to cross this ocean of samsara, I seek your immense grace. Gajamukhanada Nija Guna Bodha Karunai Purivai Shri Vigneshwara 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 Gajamukhanada. Guru Swarupamai Ulahil Vandemai Kakum Isha Ganesha. Guru Swarupamai Ulahil Vandemai Kakum Isha Ganesha. Gajamukhanada Nija Guna Bodha Karunai Purivai Shri Vigneshwara Gajamukhanada Nija Guna Bodha. பரம்பொருளென உன்னை பணிந்திட அருட்கடலென உன்னை துதித்திட பாவினை உன் அருளால் வென்றிட வரம் வேண்டும். பரம்பொருளென உன்னை பணிந்திட அருட்கடலென உன்னை துதித்திட பவவினை உன் அருளால் வென்றிட வரம் வேண்டும். பரம்பொருளென உன்னை பணிந்திட அருட்கடலென உன்னை துதித்திட பவவினை உன் அருளால் வென்றிட வரம் வேண்டும். உலகில் வந்தெம்மை காக்கும் ஈஷா ரமணேஷா கணேஷா. உலகில் வந்தெம்மை காக்கும் ஈஷா ரமணேஷா கணேஷா. ரமணேஷா கணேஷா. ரமணேஷா நமோ ரமணா.
நமோ ரமணாயவே ஞானமும் கல்வியும் நமோ ரமணாயவே ஞானமும் கல்வியும் நமோ ரமணாயவே நாமரே மந்திரம் நமோ ரமணாயவே நாமரே மந்திரம் நமோ ரமணாயவே நாவு கருங்கலம் நமோ ரமணாயவே நல்வழி கூட்டுமே நமோ ரமணாயவே ஞாயிறும் திங்களும் நமோ ரமணாயவே நாட்களும் கோள்களும் நமோ ரமணாயவே நாதரணங்களும் நமோ ரமணாயவே நம்மோ சுடர்வரே நமோ ரமணாயவே நான்கு நெறிகளும் நமோ ரமணாயவே நான்மறையூர்பொருள் நமோ ரமணாயவே நம்முரை வாய்மையாம் நமோ ரமணாயவே நம்பிக்கை கூறுமே நமோ ரமணாயவே நம்பனொரு பெயர் நமோ ரமணாயவே நாடும் முழு சொல்ல நமோ ரமணாயவே நன்புல தூண்போக்கு நமோ ரமணாயவே நம்பனை காட்டுமே நமோ ரமணாயவே நாத்திக காட்சிக்கு நமோ ரமணாயவே நாதின பாதியும் நமோ ரமணாயவே நம்பின தந்தக்கு நமோ ரமணாயவே நாடும் நிருபரே நமோ ரமணாயவே நாசமிதாதது நமோ ரமணாயவே நான் என்பதன் பொருள் நமோ ரமணாயவே நாடி நிதயத்து நமோ ரமணாயவே நன்மை பயக்குமே நமோ ரமணாயவே நட்ட நடு தரி நமோ ரமணாயவே நண்பனருள் கொடு நமோ ரமணாயவே நாடும் மத நமோ ரமணாயவே நம்பனவின்றது நமோ ரமணாயவே நங்களை யாண்டது நமோ ரமணாயவே நங்கள் விடு துணை நமோ ரமணாயவே நங்குரி நாட்டமே நமோ ரமணாயவே நம்முள்ளொழிவது நமோ ரமணாயவே நம்மை ஒழிப்பது நமோ ரமணாயவே நாமாயொழிவது நமோ ரமணாயவே ஞானமே இந்தமே நமோ ரமணாயவே ஞாதுரு நேயமும் நமோ ரமணாயவே ஞான விளக்கமும் நமோ ரமணாயவே ஞான முழுமையும் நமோ ரமணாயவே நங்கள் ஸ்வரூபமே நமோ ரமணாயவே நங்கள் ஸ்வரூபமே. ஓம் நமோ பகவதே ஸ்ரீ ரமணாய.
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanayave. Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana. This is the japa which we have to do again and again so that we get back to the source and question who am I and find our true nature which is within ourselves, says Bhagavan. And what is in that source? It is the pure bliss. It is the Ramanananda. It is the ocean of pure bliss. Let us all take a dip in that ocean of pure bliss, says Shuddhananda Bharati. And what happens when we do that? Once we take a dip in that, we have seen Bhagavan's life, how he used to be equal to everybody. Equal in the sense that he used to show so much of love to each one of them. Till date, we feel that we are special to Ramana. That is the samarasa shanti he gave to all of us. When we go to Ramana, all of us lose our chattering mind and we see only Ramana. The one who is seeing, when he sees only Ramana, where is there any difference? So, when we are in front of Ramana, he makes us get back to that source so that all become the same. Let us say to everybody that this is that bliss, this is that pure bliss. Let us all chant Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva and get back to that source. And that jnana which Ramana showered on all of us and is showering till date, that makes us dance in that pure bliss. He makes many miracles. He performs many miracles on a daily basis, on a momentary basis. Every moment is a miracle. But it never seems like a miracle because it is so natural. It is like we are breathing. Every moment we take in a breath and leave out a breath. It is so miraculous. Is it possible by myself to breathe without that power? But I don't see that miracle because Bhagavan has made it happen naturally. So he gets us all to that natural state. How can we get back to that natural state? It is by questioning, who am I? He has given us the path of self enquiry to get back to our source so that we don't wander about here and there. He is the unequaled one who did the unequaled tapas at Tiruvannamalai, at Arunachala. And till date, we can see, we ourselves can witness when we go and sit in the Sannidhi of Ramana, we lose ourselves. That unequaled tapas happens. That is the Mahima of the Sannidhi. And what happens there? The Ajnana is torn away, and the Jnana, light of Jnana, lights itself, giving us that pure bliss. Let us all take a dip in the Ramanananda Amrita Kadal. This is a composition of Shuddhananda Bharati, music by L. Krishnan sir, Kannada translation by R. Jayagopal. ರಮಣಾನಂದ ಅಮೃತದ ಕಡಲಲಿ ನೀರಾಡೆ ಬನ್ನಿರಿ. ರಮಣಾನಂದ ಅಮೃತದ ಕಡಲಲಿ ನೀರಾಡೆ ಬನ್ನಿರಿ. ಸಮರಸ ಶಾಂತಿ ಸಂದೇಶವ ಜಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ಸಾರಿರಿ. ಸಮರಸ ಶಾಂತಿ ಸಂದೇಶವ ಜಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ಸಾರಿರಿ. ರಮಣಾನಂದ ಅಮೃತದ ಕಡಲಲಿ ನೀರಾಡೆ ಬನ್ನಿರಿ. ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಶರಣು ಎನ್ನುವ ಮಂತ್ರನಾದವನು ಕೇಳಿರಿ. ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಶರಣು ಎನ್ನುವ ಮಂತ್ರನಾದವನು ಕೇಳಿರಿ. ಜ್ಞಾನಶಕ್ತಿಯು ಹೊಮ್ಮಿ ತರುವಾನಂದ ನರ್ತನ ಕಾಣಿರಿ. ಈ ಜ್ಞಾನಶಕ್ತಿಯು ಹೊಮ್ಮಿ ತರುವಾನಂದ ನರ್ತನ ಕಾಣಿರಿ. ಈ ರಮಣಾನಂದ ಅಮೃತದ ಕಡಲಲಿ ನೀರಾಡೆ ಬನ್ನಿರಿ. ಅದ್ಭುತ ಅನೇಕ ಮಾಡಿ ತೋರಿದ ಅರುಣ ರಮಣರ ಸೇವಿಸಿರಿ. ಅದ್ಭುತ ಅನೇಕ ಮಾಡಿ ತೋರಿದ ಅರುಣ ರಮಣರ ಸೇವಿಸಿರಿ. ನಾನು ಯಾರೆಂದು ಕೇಳಿದಾತನ, ನಾನು ಯಾರೆಂದು ಕೇಳಿದಾತನ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹೃದಯದಲ್ಲೇ ಕಾಣಿರಿ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹೃದಯದಲ್ಲೇ ಕಾಣಿರಿ. ರಮಣಾನಂದ ಅಮೃತದ ಕಡಲಲಿ ನೀರಾಡೆ ಬನ್ನಿರಿ ಸಾಟಿಯಿಲ್ಲದ ತಪಶಕ್ತಿ ತೋರುವ ಸನ್ನಿಧಾನವನು ಸ್ಮರಿಸಿರಿ ಸಾಟಿಯಿಲ್ಲದ ತಪಶಕ್ತಿ ತೋರುವ ಸನ್ನಿಧಾನವನು ಸ್ಮರಿಸಿರಿ ಅಜ್ಞಾನವೆನ್ನುವ ಇರುಳನು ನೀಗಿ ಜ್ಞಾನ ವಿಕಾಸವ ಪಡೆಯಿರಿ ಅಜ್ಞಾನವೆನ್ನುವ ಇರುಳನು ನೀಗಿ ಜ್ಞಾನ ವಿಕಾಸವ ಪಡೆಯಿರಿ ರಮಣಾನಂದ ಅಮೃತದ ಕಡಲಲಿ ನೀರಾಡೆ ಬನ್ನಿರಿ ಸಮರಸ ಶಾಂತಿ ಸಂದೇಶವ ಜಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೆಡೆ ಸಾರಿರಿ ರಮಣಾನಂದ ಅಮೃತದ ಕಡಲಲಿ ನೀರಾಡೆ ಬನ್ನಿರಿ ರಮಣಾನಂದ ಅಮೃತದ ಕಡಲಲಿ ನೀರಾಡೆ ಬನ್ನಿರಿ ನೀರಾಡೆ ಬನ್ನಿರಿ ನೀರಾಡೆ ಬನ್ನಿರಿ Namo Ramana. We will now have the reading and sharing from the book Bhagavan's Ramana's Muruganar by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we have been reading from the book Ramana's Muruganar, edited and compiled by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We are coming to the account of Sadhuvam Swamigal, where Sadhuvam Swamigal entitles the account as Sri Muruganar, the right hand of Sri Bhagavan. Sri Muruganar, the right hand of Sri Bhagavan. We saw how he explains that since Bhagavan residing in the heart of Muruganar is flowing through his mind and hand, then Muruganar himself is the right hand through whom Bhagavan writes all the verses. And we have come to the point where Muruganar is saying, Enna kaimare, that how can he ever repay the great benefactor called Ramana Maharshi. So we begin there, describing his wonder at the fact that he can do nothing in return for the great boon bestowed upon him by Sri Bhagavan. Sri Muruganar sings, being graciously seated in my heart as mother and father, the one source is the mother and father. Being graciously seated in my heart as mother and father, you have given me in this very birth the supreme life of non-dual consciousness, the sublime and pure state of Shiva, by means of the clarity of the bestowal of grace, the silence which is the nature of the self. What can I do in return for this? Enna kaimaru seiven. Bhagavan, of course, says to another devotee who asks this, just abide in the self. That is the kaimaru you can do. Even among the most mature aspirants seeking liberation, no matter how much devotion they may have to God and Guru, no matter how much unceasing effort they may make, no matter how firm their minds may be, there are some who are unable to do anything to oppose the indescribable Maya, when by its wonderful power it makes the rising waves of vasanas rage like a storm, and hence it is natural that, being possessed by fear and feeling themselves to be like a ship tossing in a violent storm without a helmsman, they should yearn expectantly for the help of the divine helmsman, the Sadguru's grace. For such sincere aspirants, Sri Ramananjali is filled with the Abhaya Vak, words assuring protection from fear, consoling and encouraging them with an infusion of fresh hope and faith by boldly proclaiming, "Do not fear. Behold, the help of Sri Ramana Guru's grace is ever available. It has saved even me. It will also save you." Whenever one is saved by Bhagavan, one definitely feels this, that if a fellow like me himself deserves to be uplifted, so many people who are, all of them, better than what I was, when they come to Bhagavan, they are sure to be saved, is the feeling one definitely has, and that is expressed by Muruganar here on behalf of all the ones saved by Bhagavan. Though there is no one else so despicable as me, by thinking repeatedly of you in the heart, I have attained the pure and undivided experience of Brahman. No one who has come to you will ever go waste, says Muruganar Swamigal. I'll read that again. He's talking on behalf of all the ones who have attained mukti by Bhagavan's upliftment, by Bhagavan's grace. Each one would speak like this only: though there is no one else so despicable as me, by thinking repeatedly of you in the heart, I have attained the pure and undivided experience of Brahman. No one who has come to you will ever go waste. Though by the grace of Sri Bhagavan, his Sat Sishya Sri Muruganar had attained the wealth of Brahmanubhuti, the loftiest of all lofty states, which can be attained only by a very few among the crores of jivas who have attained a human birth, which is itself so rare to attain. He lived among us in such a simple manner, as if he were an ordinary person who did not know anything, and hence Muruganar's great attainment was known only to a very few people, even among the devotees of Sri Bhagavan. In answer to those who asked him, "When did you attain this supreme treasure of grace?" Sri Muruganar sang, "O sovereign of divine grace, who has assumed the form of Guru, the very day that I worshipped your precious holy feet, the forthcoming births and deaths were dispelled, and I was saved, having attained the divine boon of liberation, which is the nature of Brahman as my own real state." Another verse, "O my Lord, on the very day I saw you," the first one was, "On the very day I worshipped your precious holy feet, the forthcoming births and deaths were dispelled." Here, "O my Lord, on the very day I saw you." Initially, Muruganar has some worry that he will not be able to take care of his mother and all that. So he says, "Even before I completely worshipped your feet, just the day I saw you, I experienced the supreme benefit of human birth. That day itself, everything was closed, because I realized my true nature, which ever exists as the peerless nature of the transcendent Shiva, which neither good nor bad can approach." All right. How can we believe all this? For the gross-minded people of the present day, who are in the habit of doubting everything and anything, being ready to believe something only if a certificate is given testifying to it, nothing short of a certificate given by Sri Bhagavan, the Sadguru, who had enslaved Sri Muruganar and bestowed upon him the experience of self-knowledge, can remove their doubts and enable them to believe the truth. Such a certificate has been given by Sri Bhagavan, as the following small incident will show. Shortly before Sri Ramana Sannidhi Murai was first published in 1933, many great Tamil scholars and poets who had understood its sublime glory sang verses in praise of it. The book before publication was sent around to these great ones, and they have actually sung some verses which are there in the preface. So they are all great Tamil scholars of that time. Each of them have praised Sannidhi Murai. Who had understood its sublime glory, sang verses in praise of it. One day, when such verses were being read out in the presence of Sri Bhagavan, Bharadwaja Sri Vishwanatha Sharma, a devotee who has written the Ashtottara, a devotee who was seated there, being inspired and elated by the sweetness of those verses, spontaneously sang aloud the words Mugavapuri Murugan. Mugavapuri is the another name for Ramanathpuram. You can see it in Google, because Vaigai river begins there. It is called as the face of the Vaigai river. Mugavapuri is the name for Ramanathpuram, from where Muruganar hails. So Vishwanath Swami calls out that phrase, Mugavapuri Murugan. Hearing these words, Sri Bhagavan turned towards him and said, using these words, you may also compose a verse. Though Sri Vishwanathan tried many times, no further words would come to his mind. And hence he prayed to Sri Bhagavan, graciously complete these words by composing a verse. I am unable to do so. Therefore, in the lilting rhythm of the words Mugavapuri Murugan, Sri Bhagavan sang the following verse, revealing in his own words of grace the greatness of his devotee, Sri Muruganar. The verse in English translation, Arunachala Ramanan, who dwells upon the heart lotus, smiled and looked fixedly, completely annihilated my soul, and poured forth grace in abundance. Singing thus, in order that people of the world be saved, Mugavapuri Murugan composed Sannidhi Murai, which is equal to Tiruvachakam. I'll read that again. Arunachala Ramanan. This is in quotation, as the Muruganar sings like this throughout Sannidhi Murai. The Sannidhi Murai is a whole song where Muruganar is singing this particular phrase, Arunachala Ramanan, who dwells upon the heart lotus, smiled and looked fixedly, completely annihilated my soul, and poured forth grace in abundance. Singing thus, in order that the people of the world be saved, Mugavapuri Murugan composed Sannidhi Murai, which is equal to Tiruvachakam. In the opening line, Arunachala Ramanan, who dwells upon the heart lotus, Sri Bhagavan not only confirms the truth that his full divine name is Arunachala Ramanan, but also reveals that he has taken abode in the lotus of Sri Muruganar's heart. So we find Sadhuvam Swamigal adopt this name in most of the places of his works, that he calls Bhagavan as Arunachala Ramanan. So he dwells in Muruganar's heart. Not only that, by the words, he smiled and looked fixedly. He reveals his custom of bestowing jnana by the divine look of grace, that is, his Nayana Diksha, Chakshu Diksha, or initiation by sight, and by his smile of silence, that is, by his Mauna Chinmudra, or silent sign of pure consciousness. So the two phrases, he smiled and he looked fixedly, mean these things. The looks fixedly at Muruganar from within or without, he doesn't say, but then it means both. The Nayana Diksha is given, soul is annihilated, and abundant grace flows continuously. And the smile of silence, the Maunam smile, Bhagavan smile is there. That represents the Maunam, says Sadhuvam Swamigal. By the words, he completely annihilated my soul and poured forth grace in abundance. He reveals that, having killed outright the mature soul called Muruganar, he abundantly showered his divine grace, whose form is the experience of Jivan Mukti. Further, and more important, by the words Mugavapuri Murugan, in order that people of world be saved, compose Sannidhi Murai, Shri Bhagavan reveals that the fruit of the divine work, Shri Ramana Sannidhi Murai, is salvation of the people of this world. And the final words of this verse, equal to Tiruvachakam, show the approval given by Shri Bhagavan, who is Lord Arunachala himself, to the fact that the words of Shri Muruganar are equal to the divine words of Manikavachakar. If Shri Muruganar had not attained the same experience of self-knowledge which Manikavachakar had attained, how could his words alone be equal to Tiruvachakam? Thus, Shri Muruganar's experience of self-knowledge is clearly confirmed by Shri Bhagavan through this verse. I will read that again. And the final words of this verse, equal to Tiruvachakam, show the approval given by Shri Bhagavan, who is Lord Arunachala Shiva himself, to the fact that the words of Shri Muruganar are equal to the divine words of Manikavachakar. If Shri Muruganar had not attained the same experience of self-knowledge which Manikavachakar had attained, how could his words alone be equal to that of Tiruvachakam? Thus, Shri Muruganar's experience of self-knowledge is clearly confirmed by Shri Bhagavan through this verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Thank you. I request once again Nandakumarji to conduct the self-enquiry session for us.
Namo Ramana. I have the book the reality in 40 verses in front of me. So I will read one of the verses we have been going through this morning. The verses Battannan ennum matte Bandhamukti Sindanegal Battanyar endru tannai பார்க்கும் கால் சித்தமாய் நித்தமுக்தன் தான் நிற்காதே பந்த சிந்தை முக்தி சிந்தை முன்னிற்குமோ மனதிற்கு. The consciousness in our experience seems to be divided as the bondage and liberation, that we seem to be bound by forces beyond us, by subconscious forces beyond us, which manifest as circumstances beyond us. And our very thoughts seem to be only coming from these substreams underneath. Like I was discussing with my daughter, how her thoughts about work, learning, security in marriage, all these seem to be circumscribed by the flow of the Indian women thought. Over the so many decades, when we start looking at the time when my mother was there, then my better half, then my daughter, we find that the flow of Indian women thought stream, my mother, how she thought about career, how she thought about children, totally different from, and each of us feel we think that. And from the male side also, how I thought about the women working is totally different from how a young man today feels. I was feeling that the spouse should not go to work. And we feel these are independent thoughts. But then on enquiry we find they are merely enslaved by the flow of thoughts underneath, by the deeper flows of human thought, we are merely reflecting that or being a slave to that. And suppose the situation in hand requires that we be totally present there, these very deeper flows also bind us. When we have to take care of somebody, an old person who needs our presence at that time, our thought about work, learning and other things would come in the way if we are not observant. Now that is called as bandham. Bhagavan says all these various flows of current, thought currents, which seem to bind us hand and feet, each of our thoughts is only coming from one of these streams. If we are opposed to some other sect based on our identity as Hindus, that comes from a flow of thought which has changed from middle extremes over the last 40-50 years. Those thoughts have been flowing to such an extent that the whole freedom struggle is looked at differently now by the average Hindu than it was by the average Hindu 40-50 years ago. So the bondage seems to be so tight that the thoughts we think are really not ours. These are coming from deeper substrates. A person who is against allopathy, we find that she doesn't undergo cataract. Simple cataract, which is requiring such simple treatment from allopathy. If you have deep abhorrence towards allopathy itself, then you are bound by that. Somebody who has deep abhorrence for the modern medicines, bitten by a viper, bitten by a snake, avoids treatment for more than 10-20 days, causing so much difficulty for himself. We are bound by the thought streams that seem to be running underneath us in the subconscious. But then Bhagavan gives us the understanding that all these bondages arise only after the arising of the root bondage, which arises in the undivided consciousness, the first rise of the ego principle. The nature is that the consciousness is undivided, but the first I arises, immediately the objective space is divided as so many things. So the mind comes after the I arises. Battannan ennumatte bandhamukti sindaneka. That we are bound. Anybody who is seriously inquiring will understand each word of mine is coming out of bondage. Is coming out of some predetermined sources, currents of thought, which prevent me from seeing other points of view. I am bound hand and feet in my expressions, in my looking at the circumstances. But then that arises only after the rise of the I thought, Bhagavan says. Battannan ennumatte bandhamukti sindanekal. So when one gains this strength in the flow of the thoughts, when after many years of adopting the right over the wrong, by having the discrimination from right and the wrong and holding on to the right, one gets the purity to come to Bhagavan, who now teaches us that the whole field of right and wrong arises, the whole field of bondage and liberation. Let us take bondage as wrong and liberation as right. The whole field of divided consciousness arises only after the subject-object division arises. That means only after the ego arises, the objective space suddenly arises as apart, and that whole objective space is divided into so many things which all drive us from the subconscious. The objective field is not merely present outside of us here, but is present inside us as the subconscious and is making us entrapped in the subject-object trap. Whereas Bhagavan says the whole subject-object division will collapse when you inquire for whom is this bondage. Battannan ennumatte bandhamukti sindanekal. Battanar endru thannai parkum kal. This thannai parkum kal should be understood is the obliteration of the ego. That when you have the darshan of Bhagavan's feet as the I, that is the simultaneous obliteration of the rays of the first I. When that I is destroyed, then the objective space does not arise at all. There is no world, there is no Sukshma Sharira. The mind and world subside the moment the I thought subsides to the source. Therefore, the thought of bondage does not arise, says Bhagavan. when the I is completely submerged in Arunachala Ramanan, when I is completely submerged in the self, which is not divided as self and non-self, then the thought of bondage, which is an objective thought, does not arise. Now, there is no need for the thought, what is liberation, to be addressed. The thought liberation becomes irrelevant, since the thought bondage itself is annihilated along with the ego. There is no need for the thought called liberation. That is the way to cross this area of bondage and liberation, says Bhagavan. A complex journey, which is complex only when you are outward turned, comes and faces the grace of Bhagavan. And that complex area of bondage is just poo-pooed and annihilated by Bhagavan by saying that, inquire who is the one in bondage. Then that thought of bondage and that whole complex area vanishes, and there is no need for the thought of liberation, because no thoughts arise in the self-luminous self. And that is where Bhagavan takes us in self-enquiry. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in Atma-ucharam for the next 10 minutes or so. We'll request Revathi Ma to keep the time for us. Thank you. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have Ramanacentre shared by Sri Ujwal Jagadeesh.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We have been meditating on the verses of Ramanacentre written by Ganapati Muni and which has been compiled and given to us by Ramana himself and which is chanted every day in the Rameshwara Mahalinga Sannidhi at Ramanamalai. And we were meditating on the 36th verse of Ramanacentre, where Ganapati Muni sings, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Vishadahasite Purna Shanti Sudhakara Sodare, Vishadahasite Purna Shanti Sudhakara Sodare, Stira Pruthulayo Purna Shakti Drishora Tularchisho, Stira Pruthulayo Purna Shakti Drishora Tularchisho, Hridaya Kamale Nityanishta Bahishta Sarat Prabhe, Ramana Bhagavan Kovamoni Samastava Bhutale, Ramana Bhagavan Kovamoni Samastava Bhutale, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami. Hunnimaya Chandirana Kandeturuttaruva, Ninna Mukha Mandalavu Surisutide Madhuva, Hunnimaya Chandirana Kandeturuttaruva, Ninna Mukha Mandalavu Surisutide Madhuva, ಜ್ಯೋತಿನಯನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಮ್ಮುತ್ತಿದೆ ಕರುಣೆ, ಜ್ಯೋತಿನಯನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಮ್ಮುತ್ತಿದೆ ಕರುಣೆ, ಹೊಮ್ಮುತ್ತಿದೆ ಎಲ್ಲರನು ಸಲಹುವ ಮಹಿಮೆ, ಬಂದೆನೋ ನಿನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ನೊಂದು ರಮಣ, ಭವದ ಕತ್ತಲೆ ಹರಿಸೋ ದಿವ್ಯ ಚರಣ, ಭವದ ಕತ್ತಲೆ ಹರಿಸೋ ದಿವ್ಯ ಚರಣ, ಬಂದೆನೋ ಬಂದೆನೋ. Ganapati Muni describes the beauty of Ramana. We have heard of this Madhurashtakam written by Vallabhacharya, where he describes the Adaram Madhuram. His lips are so beautiful of Krishna, and his face is so beautiful, his eyes is so beautiful, his hasitam, his smile is so beautiful, his flute is so beautiful, his walk is so beautiful, his posture is so beautiful. So he keeps on telling everything is Madhuram, 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 Madhuram. That's why it's called Madhurashtakam. And the great saint poets who have been with Ramana, they have also described Ramana, that everything of Ramana is so beautiful. And here Ganapati Muni says the Ramana's smile is so beautiful. It is like the moon which arose from the Sudha. What that? Oh, the ocean of nectar. That we all know that the Chandra came out of the Samudra Mantana when the Devas and the Asuras, they were churning the milky ocean. And that milky ocean had the nectar, had Amrita in it. And because they were churning this ocean, various beautiful things came out of the ocean. And one among them was this Chandra, the moon, which is so beautiful. And its rays, it gives out the Sudha, that it gives out nectar. So it is called Sudhakara, is the moon. And here the smile is just like the brother of that Sudhakara. It is like the Sodhara of that Sudhakara. So beautiful is that smile. And when talking about the Sudhakara Chandra, one of the gurus of the 24 gurus which Dattatreya Swami had, Chandra was one of the gurus. And when the Yadu Maharaja asked Dattatreya Swami, who is in the Avadhuta state, he asked, "Oh Swami, you seem to be so happy. How is Chandra your guru?" And he explains, Chandra is my guru because we see that the Chandra in the first 15 days of the month, we see that it is slowly growing. There is no moon. There's in the new moon, from the new moon it slowly becomes a small crescent moon. From the crescent moon it grows to become the half moon, and slowly it grows, and soon the Paurnami day it becomes full moon. And later after the Paurnami we have the Krishna Paksham, where the full moon is slowly becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and one day it disappears. So we see that the moon is waxing and waning. But in truth, the moon does not wax, neither it wanes. The moon is ever full. So Dattatreya Swami says, from the moon I learned that we are ever full. Our own true nature is ever full. And there is no correct, there is no lacuna at all. We are ever full. There is no waxing and there is no waning. But because we consider we ourselves to be this body, we see that this body was small and it is growing to be a young man, and later the body ages and it shrinks. So we need to see the waning and waxing of this body. But in truth, we are ever full because we are that Atma which is ever full. So Bhagavan blessed us with one Viniyoga song that we have, where we have one Viniyoga of an Hasta called Ardha Chandra, where the song says, Nane Ardha Chandra, Chandranuna Ardhavu. That is, that Ardha Chandra, I represent half moon. Na Ardha Chandra, I only show half a Chandran. But Adaruna Toruvenu Purna Atma Stalavanu. When you have to show who are you, where do we keep our hands? Ramana says we keep our hand close to our chest because that is the place of our Atma. Purna Atma Stalavanu. And that Atma Stala is ever full. And there is no lacuna in that Atma Nishtha, that state of being the Atma. Sadhu Swami in one of his songs, Loka Mahaguru, Lokeshwarane Ramanesha, he says, Paunavi Nilavilum, Sirkure Undanai, Purana Olishai Ramanesha. Even in the Paurnami Nilav, that is the Paurnami moon also, there are Sirkure Undane. There is some lacuna. We can see some craters. We can see some black patches even in the Paurnami moon. But make me Purana Olishai Arunachal. Make me full of light. Make me full of light when Sadhu and Swami prays Ramana. Because he is the brother of that Chandra, Sudhakara, he smiles and say, you are ever full. Why are you asking me to make me full? Know your own true nature. Then you will be ever full. Saying this, it is as if Ramana is smiling and telling us this truth, that we are ever full, just like the moon, and the waxing and waning and all these limitations that we see ourselves with. It seems to be like that. It is only an appearance and it is not the truth. And this truth he reveals to us with confidence and with ever abiding in that self, because his glance is filled with power, and that glance is so powerful that it attracts us and it makes us turn within to our own true nature, and it has the power. The mind is very, very powerful tool. Ramana says Adishaya Shakti, this mind is, but this mind has the power to distract us and take us to various directions in the world. But the glance of Ramana is much more powerful than the power of the mind, because that is the power, because Ramana is the self, and the power of the self is what we see in the mind. It is only a fraction of the power of the self. So the self has the power to draw our attention back to the heart, and Ramana's glance is that power of the self, and it blesses everyone by drawing them towards their own true nature, which is their heart. And Ramana is ever abiding in that heart. Hridaya Kamale Nitya Nishta. Because he is ever abiding in the self, we can see that light of the self all through him, in every form that we see him, in his name, in his songs, in his teachings that we see documented, and everything, his charitram and his place where he resides, his photo, his murti, and his thought. It is filled with that light. We are filled with that happiness because he is ever abiding in the heart. And Ramana Bhagavan Ko Va Mauni Samasthala Bhutale. What kind of silence is this? There is no parallel in this world. Talking of silence and the power of silence which Ramana exhibited, we have a beautiful story told by Ramana himself. There were two people, one called Swarupananda and Tattvaraya. And Swarupananda was the uncle and his nephew was this Tattvaraya. Both of them decided they will go in search of a guru, and they will find a guru and they will get enlightened. And whoever gets the guru first and gets enlightened will become the guru to the other. This is the deal that they have. And Tattvaraya went up towards the north of India, and Swarupananda, the uncle, he came down south. And because he was aged, Swarupananda got tired very, very soon, and he sat down in one place and prayed to the divine, saying that, oh Supreme, I don't have the power to continue my search for the Guru. It is you have to take care, and you have to bring the Guru to me. So, pleased by this prayer of Swarupananda and his Shraddha, the Guru appeared and he enlightened Swarupananda. And as the deal was, Tattvaraya became the student of Swarupananda. And Swarupananda was staying in a hermitage in a forest. And Tattvaraya wrote a beautiful song in a meter called Bharani. And that Bharani meter, he exhibited, he came to the court of the king, and amidst all the scholars and the ministers and the intellectuals in that country, in front of the Raja, he was ready to present this beautiful song written in the Bharani meter. And the scholars objected. Oh, on whom is this Bharani meter? On your Guru Swarupananda? This Bharani meter should be dedicated to a brave soldier who has the power to control 1,000 elephants. And it cannot be written on some ascetic who is sitting in one forest hermitage. This is not possible. And the Tattvaraya told, sir, it is very, very apt to write this song in Bharani meter to my teacher. Come, let's go there itself and find out the truth. So Tattvaraya led the group, and Tattvaraya was followed by the king and the ministers and the various scholars and the subjects of the country and also the soldiers. Everybody followed Tattvaraya to that forest hermitage. And as soon as they reached that hermitage, Tattvaraya went to the Swarupananda Swami and told the reason that they had come. And Swarupananda Swami sat in silence. And all those who had arrived, they all sat down in silence. 1 hour passed, 2 hours passed, many hours passed, 1 day and 1 night passed. Like this, several days passed in that silence, in that power of silence. Nobody's mind also moved. Everybody is in complete silence, not even thought of attending to nature's call, not even thought of thinking of food, not even thought of thinking of sleep. They were in that state of silence and bliss. And after those 2-3 days, Swarupananda moved his mind and opened his eyes, and everybody woke up from that state of silence, and the ministers agreed, yes, Tattvaraya, Bharani should be written for dedication to a soldier who can control 1,000 elephants. But your Guru Swarupananda is greater than that soldier because he was able to control this mad elephants of so many people. What is that mad elephant? The mad elephant called the mind and the ego. It was able to still it. It was able to control it. So surely this Bharani song that you have written is apt to that. Your Guru Swarupananda said, all the ministers had agreed to that composition of Tattvaraya. Such is the power of the silence, and this has inspired great ones and Ganapati Muni here to say, oh Ramana, what kind of silence is this? Life pours forth from the incomparable glory of your shining eyes. Oh Ramana, what silence is this? It has no parallel on earth, my Lord. Oh Ramana, oh Ramana. Such is the silence of Ramana, and the very name Ramana, the songs written by him and the songs written in his presence, the songs written by his inspiration, it has the power to take us back to that silence which is our own true nature, which is all powerful, to reveal this glory of the silence which is our own true nature and which makes every speech, every movement possible. Ramana has come into our lives. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Ramana Ashtottara written by Vishwanatha Swami, will be shared by Dr. Sarada.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we in this part of the satsang are meditating on Vishwanatha Swami's Ramana Ashtottara Shatanamavali, And we are now meditating on the Nama Om Virupaksha Guhavasaya Namaha, which in one name encapsulates several years of Bhagavan's life. That cave to which we are all beholden, Bhagavan himself says he is beholden to it. He calls it Mother. He says because it has given him a space to stay for several years. Bhagavan stayed there from 1900 to 1916 when Mother Aragamma came to stay with him permanently. And it is during this period that several historic events in the life of Bhagavan have happened, which I say are historic in the sense that they are transforming of history itself. They are not historic in the sense that they belong to time. As Sri Natarajan has written, Bhagavan himself is timeless in time. So every moment of Bhagavan's life, every incident in Bhagavan's life, every word that Bhagavan has written for us, and the words which he has spoken are all timeless. But the words he has spoken, they have a history, and that history goes back to the November of 1907 when Vashishta Ganapati Muni came and surrendered to Bhagavan. We were meditating on that moment of Muni's surrender to Bhagavan, which is an extraordinary moment. It is beyond imagination. Many descriptions are given of Muni as a scholar, as the intellectual. But here was actually one who was at the peak of spiritual anguish. Because he knew beyond any doubt that he had practiced, and he had indeed practiced. He had performed crores of japa. He had achieved many siddhis, and he was aware of those siddhis, but knew very well their limitation. He was not bound by the intellect in any manner. The intellect in him performed its highest function of revealing its own limitation to him. And he knew that the fulfillment had to come only by the glance, the grace of the Sadguru. Now, to whom would he turn as a Sadguru? And the grace of the Sadguru revealed itself. And he knew that it was the one who was then known as Brahmana Swami, living at that point of time at Virupaksha cave. It was a time of the Kartigai Deepam festival. The November of 1907, the date was 18th of November. The Muni had actually performed a spectacular miracle for the people of Tiruvannamalai in that festival, when the big Ratham of Arunachaleshwara had suddenly stopped on the streets of Tiruvannamalai and would not move despite every effort of the people. And there seemed to be nothing that was actually stalling the Ratham, the chariot, the immense chariot, but it would not move. And the people were distressed because they felt it was a very, very bad omen. It was something they couldn't comprehend, and they were worried, very worried, very anxious. They left the Ratham there, and that night the Muni, who was then doing his tapas at Nirruti Lingam, which is the southwest of Arunachala, there he was meditating. It's one of the 8 lingas which mark the directions around Arunachala, and from which the directions are said to have prayed to Arunachala when he appeared in that glorious form. Muni was meditating at the Nirruti Lingam, and that night he had a vision, kind of a dream, in which the temple, the chief temple priest of the Arunachaleshwara temple came to him and told him, "You need to come and make the chariot move." Next morning, Muni was there. He was inside the chariot. He had climbed up. And then he prayed to Arunachaleshwara, and praying to that Lord to whom he has written even the Hara Sahasram, 1,000 verses to Hara, to Arunachaleshwara. Muni knew of the glory of Arunachala. He knew of his power very well. He had tasted some miracles as well from Arunachala. And so he prayed to Arunachaleshwara, and then he told the chief priest, who was amazed that on hearing about the dream, and felt blessed that the Lord had gone to Muni in his shape, in his form, in the dream, and asked him to come over. And Muni said, "Let us once again prayerfully pull the chariot," and of course it moved. This was another instance of praise and fame for Muni, but the Muni did not feel thrilled or elated by this, because in his heart he knew about his life. He knew that every glorious event in his life was also followed by the shadow of sorrow, the shadow of grief. When he was born, his parents were thrilled that he was the incarnation of Ganapati, but he did not speak. Later, when he started speaking and he became an adept at all the mantras, an adept at astrology, he predicted the death of his own mother. And finally, he even remembers or recalls that at the height of appreciation at Navadvipa, when he was given the title Kavyakanta after a day's grueling debate with one of the foremost of scholars there, everyone was singing his praises. But for him, he had, during the course of the debate, just once stuttered a bit. And one of the scholars in the gathering said, "Oh, he does not know the upasana of Tara. Tara Vidya is not known to him. Otherwise, he would not stutter." So that one small blot was what hurt him and remained with him much more than the praise and the acclaim which he won at the Navadvipa. And so the Muni understood the ways of the mind. He knew the limitations. He knew that despite having a large following, he had not attained the completeness in which there can be no rising and setting of pain or pleasure, in which the fullness alone is. Muni knew about it, and he knew that he was not established in it. He knew that he had had several visions of the Lord and the Mother. But this truth was what he hankered for. And suddenly, that afternoon, in that moment of utter despair as to where will I go from here, the light revealed itself to him with the thought of the Brahmana Swami. And the afternoon of Tiruvannamalai, even in the month of November, there must have been quite a bit of heat. The hill is Agnilinga, but the Muni had no thought of anything except of surrendering to the feet of the Sadguru, and in the afternoon sun, not minding it, not even probably aware of it, he ran up to Virupaksha cave, literally almost ran up to Virupaksha cave, and the master was seated outside, waiting for the disciple. The master it is who comes to the disciple. We heard of Swarupananda in Ujwal Jagadeesh's story, seeking the Guru, asking the Guru to come to him. Interpreting the verse, Kantam Irumbupol, Kavandane Vidamal, Sri Ramanacentre says, very often in our spiritual search, we believe we are doing something. We are doing self-enquiry, we are praying to Bhagavan, we are striving to get back to the self, we are doing this and that. It is, all our efforts are like iron filings moving towards the magnet. The filings are moving, but they are doing nothing at all. The magnet is still, and it is doing all the work. And even so, the magnet of the Sadguru, the magnet of the self, pulls us back. And so, Bhagavan drew Muni to his feet. Muni fell at his feet, held in the traditional manner his right foot with his right hand, means he crossed his hands in front of him as he fell full length in the Shashtanga Namaskara at his feet, and he bathed Bhagavan's feet with his tears, bathing those feet, doing Abhisheka to those feet with his tears. He spoke of his anguish, he spoke of his situation, he spoke of his desperation, and sought the grace of the Master. And Abhyaja Karuna, that grace which has no reason, says Muni in the Chatvarimshat. But for you, O chief among sages, benediction is no virtue. It's not a virtue for you. But for you, O chief among sages, benediction is no virtue. For it is only natural to the effulgent heart which you are, that natural karuna, which Muruganar says is like the shade of a tree, given to every comer by nature, not by choice. That natural karuna, which Muni later describes in Ramana Gita again and again as first pouring forth from the eyes of Bhagavan and bathing the disciple and cleansing the disciple. Those eyes of Bhagavan first lighted on Muni and allowed him to soak in the grace. And then the master spoke and said, find out from where the I thought arises and merge at its source. That is tapas. The Muni had done crores of japa. He got from Bhagavan the Upadesha, find out the source from which the mantra arises, the sound of the mantra, the nada of the mantra arises and merge at its source. That is tapas. The Muni sat there in Bhagavan's presence, following the instruction, which always becomes an experience immediately because of the force, because of the power of the Guru Vakya. And he was immersed in that experience then and there. This was to be an epoch meeting. By Bhagavan's grace, we'll dwell on it whenever Bhagavan allows us next to do so. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Radha.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Aksharamanamalai by Srimati Radha.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. நைந்தழி கனியா நலநிலை பதத்தில் நாடியுட்கொள் நலம் அருணாச்சலா. நொந்திடதுந்தனை தந்தனை கொண்டிலை அந்த கனி என கருணாச்சலாம். நோக்கிய கருதி மெய்தாக்கிய பக்குவமாக்கினியாடருள் அருணாச்சலாம். பற்றி மல்விடன் தலை உற்றிடு முனமருள் பற்றிடருள் புரி அருணாச்சலாம். பார்த்தருள் மாலர பார்த்திலையனின் அருள் பாருணக்கார் சொல்வார் அருணாச்சலா. பித்து விட்டுன்னை நேர்பித்தனாக்கினை அருள் பித்தம் தெளி மருந்தருணாச்சலாம். வீதியில் உன்னை சார் வீதியில் என்னை சேர் வீதி உந்தனக்கேன் அருணாச்சலா. புல்லறிவேதுரை நல்லறிவேதுரை புல்லிடவே அருள் அருணாச்சலாம். பூமண மாமண பூரண மணம் கொள்ள பூரண மணம் அருள் அருணாச்சலாம். பெயர் நினைத்திடவே பிடித்திழுத்தனை உன் பெருமையார் அறிவார் அருணாச்சலாம். பேத்தனம் விட விடா பேயா பிடித்தென்னை பேயனாக்கினையன் அருணாச்சலா. பைங்கொடியானான் பற்றின்றி வாடாமல் பற்று கொடாய்க்கா அருணாச்சலாம். அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி. அக்ஷர Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We conclude today's satsang with the Ashtottara puja to Bhagavan. The Ashtottara puja will be done by Ujwal Jagadeesh at Ramanacentre for Learning's meditation hall. The Ashtottara will be chanted by Vaibhavji, Prarthana and Uma Prati. We conclude today's satsang with the Arati song to Bhagavan. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितम् श्री रमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्विमात्रम् भुवनं समस्तम् गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरम् चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि ॐ महासेन महोंसेन जाताय नमः ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः ॐ गुरवे नमः ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः ॐ महौजसे नमः ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः ॐ सुन्दरार्य तपःफलाय नमः ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः ॐ तीव्राय नमः ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः ॐ तपोमयाय नमः ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः ॐ स्थिराय नमः ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः ॐ उद्विग्नयनाय नमः ॐ पूर्णाय नमः ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः ॐ गम्भीराय नमः ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः ॐ दक्षिणस्य निधाय नमः ॐ धीराय नमः ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः ॐ स्वराजे नमः ॐ महर्षये नमः ॐ भगवते नमः ॐ ईड्याय नमः
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः ॐ विमलाय नमः ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः ॐ आप्ताय नमः ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः ॐ समदृशे नमः ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः ॐ सत्याय नमः ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः ॐ श्री शोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ हृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणात् बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनाम पूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्य तद्दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनासीकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संगिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ महर्षि नमो महर्षि नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।